Okay, good day, guys, and here's me making a video of how I work on my pictures. Most of you ask in the DMs and from the different platforms on which I post my designs, and you ask, how do you edit your pictures? Do you use plugins and all this? And I tell you guys, I don't use plugins. I do everything I need to do from scratch on Photoshop. And so I think I'm basically going to walk you through how I do all of that. And yeah, I think it's going to be a very enjoyable process. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. So creating a new file, this Photoshop 2022. So creating a new file, we'll do 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels. All right, resolution, bring it down to 150. All right, then I title this picture. Okay, okay, so I have my artboard set up for me to start working with. So let's take a random picture of the internet. So let's go to unsplash.com. all right, so I think let's see, African man. All right, so I'm trying to pick out a picture that has already been retouched, because I'm not going to be teaching how to retouch in this video. I'll just be teaching you how I make use of camera raw on already retouched pictures. So there are so many tutorials out there on photo retouching, so you could get them. I think I could make use of this. Alright, I love that. Let me see if there's any other one I can use for the purpose of this tutorial. Okay, this one is more up close. I think I can make use of this. All right, so I have both of them there. Let me just open them up. So bringing them up to Photoshop. All right, so you have this and you have the other one. Okay, so basically say for this, now try to crop out the guy out of the image. This picture has already been retouched. All right, so I'm working on already retouched picture, so I'm trying to crop out the guy from the background. Let's see how well the AI does that. So I use my marquee tool to select, and I think I'd want to use my brush over his beard to make sure I get all the unwanted backgrounds out of there. I think that's quite much. That's quite about it. And just a little bit. Alright, I think I'm good with what I have here. Smooth a little bit. Alright, so there we have our guy cut out of, I think it's cut out pretty nice. Yeah, so new layer, make sure it's okay. Then I have my dude here. Right, so basically, first of all, I like make sure you convert to smart object, so that should in case you need to make some changes back on the picture, you can actually go back and make those changes. So convert to smart object. Then come to filter, right? Then I go to camera raw. try to make this video as short as possible. So in my camera roll, I have my dude up close here. All right, so firstly I come to the basics. All right, the right hand side of your design is where your interface is, where I have all the things I play around with, all my little toys. So I go to basic first, then if I don't like the temperature, I can decide to swing the temperature anywhere I like, depending on the color combination of my design. Actually, I tell most designers, make sure your color combination guides your picture editing. Do you understand? So that your color is not looking too warm and your design is looking too cool. You understand? Taking it to the right warms, taking the temperature to the right or towards the yellowish part makes it warm, taking it towards the left makes it cold. Do you understand? So depending on what your design looks like, you understand, that should be able to guide your picture editing, so to say. All right, so there's basically no rule to all of this here. There's basically no direct rule. So I tell my students there's no direct rule to how you work on your pictures on camera raw. You understand? So just play around with it, play around with it, and whatever works for you, fine. Whatever doesn't work for you, trash it. All right. So first of all, I'll go to my clarity. All right. So I turn my clarity up a bit. All right. Take my clarity all the way up, all the way up. Just keep doing it. Don't just worry. Take my clarity all the way up till I'm satisfied. Then I can do same with my texture. All right, to give more details depending on what I want to do. I can take it back the other way. All right, so depending, then my dehaze too. All right, dehaze will either brighten up or darken depending on what exactly I want, depending on preference. Now that's why I said depends on preference. Totally depends on preference. All right, so I add my vibrance. All right, add vibrance to it. Then at the same time I reduce the saturation. Why I'm reducing the saturation is because in the process of my design I will still need to, in the course of my design I'll still need to color grade. Do you understand? I'll still need to color grade the pictures, and so it's best you color grade the picture that is a little bit out of saturation than to than to color grade a picture that is already saturated, like the colors are already much. Then adding more colors on it again would hamper so much on the design. So desaturate it. I didn't say take it to black and white totally, but just desaturate it to a point where you can still see the coloring, but at the same time it's not that much. You understand? For the purpose of the continuity of the work. No. So yeah, that's pretty much that. All right, so then next place I go to is my details. Yeah, so I come to this noise reduction, try to even out some things. So I might not really take it out that much, still keep some details. Okay, so that's about that. I don't want the noise reduction to be much so it doesn't look so plastic. Right, something I'm trying to achieve with this. So right, I have this. All right, so this is the before, after, before, after, before, after. All right, so then I sharpen the image too. Sharpen the image to give it this very, very sharp and crunchy texture. Alright, so I come back to my basic again. So that's why I said there's basically no rule to how this is being done. So just take your time and just play around all of this. So I think I over saturated. Okay, so minus 18 is good for me. My details are okay. Alright, noise reduction, it's okay for me. If I take it so much to the right, we're having so much details, bring it back up to the left, I'm releasing so much details. If I increase this here. See how so smooth and plastic it has turned, which is not what I want. All right, so homogeneous reduction of a little bit, so still have some details, but so then I can decide to color grade here, depends on what exactly I want to do. So play around the midtones and the shadows. All right, depending on the type of design I'm doing. All right, so yeah, so you see why I told you to desaturate. Now I'm bringing back the color a little bit because of the color grading I'm doing. So I told you, depending on the design you have to do, or the color combination of your design. So I'm taking everything towards an orangish kind of stuff. So without color grading, with the color grading. All right, so this is the before, after, before, after. So you see how sharper the image is actually coming out to be. All right, so the image speaks so well for you. Yes, to come into design. So I come back to, I'll make sure I come back to this basic and reduce the highlights. The highlights are looking too much. Reduce it a little bit. Reduce my whites a little bit too. Yeah, I think reduce. Let me add blacks a little bit. So all right, so I think I'm satisfied with this. So here's the before, here's an after, here's the before, and here's the after. Here's the before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. So you have that. All right, so all right, so before, after, before, after, before, after, before. All right, so before, after, before, after, before, after. All right, so now we have that as sharp as that can be. Then I okay this. I think there's really no other thing I actually tamper with here. Can bring back the saturation a little bit. So I have that. All right, so I have my dude to look like this. So I have this original. All right, it was pale, but now I've done this to sharpen up the picture. All right, and so this ends up making your image. All right, today we'll be basically talking about we'll be basically diving straight into picture editing, photo editing. All right, so that you can actually get a good perspective of how I edit my pictures and how they come out the way they come out. Okay, so basically we'll go to Chrome, and then pixels.com is where I get my images from. All right, so I come, I look for Black American woman. All right, so it's bringing me all sorts of pictures. All right, so I'll just look for one that can work. I actually saw one earlier. Okay, let's use this. Right, so I've downloaded this. Right, so let me look for another one. I'll look for another one. Look for another one. Okay, let's use this too. All right, so now we have those two pictures. So basically what I do, I love retouching my pictures separately. Right, I love retouching them separately. So these are two pictures here. So I open them with Photoshop. So this is the first one. So if you notice, they both have different um, color grades on them. All right, so that is actually not the focus for today. So the focus will basically be on our face. So now um, I tell my students, try as much as possible to make sure your clients are giving you, as a designer, your clients are giving you pictures that are already in high res, right? So that the process is faster and easier for you to navigate and walk around, right? Because most times we struggle with, as designers, we struggle with enhancing pictures and all of that because it's sent in low res. If you check the resolution of these pictures, you see this one is 3901 by 4800. This one is 3600. Very, very good high res pictures. All right. So, how do you know high res pictures? Either by the size of the pictures. If you check this to find the size of this picture, you see the size, right? 1.7 kilobytes. This is quite high, all right. And the resolution too. Resolution above 3000 pixels, meaning it's going to be very, very sharp. All right. So we have that there. All right, so now we just move straight. I just move straight. The first thing I do is I move straight to camera raw. Right, this is basically where we'll be doing all of our stuff. All right, so under camera raw, I come to basic. Basic is the first place I go to. All right, so depending on however it is I want to do my design. If I'm the type that does my design before I start arranging my pictures and all of that, I would want to make sure that my picture balances out, or the temperature of the picture actually balances out with the temperature of the design. All right, some designs after designing will tilt towards having so much blues in them, and some designs will tilt towards having yellows and oranges in them. All right, so that's why you have this slider for different temperatures. You see how it's affecting the warmth and the coldness of the picture. All right, so that notwithstanding, tint is also the same thing, alright? Affects the greens and the maroons or the purple in the picture. Alright, so first thing I do is I come to clarity. Alright, so I take my clarity slider up. Alright, then I take my texture up a little bit. So one thing you need to learn about this photo editing is that don't overdo it. Alright, when you're overdoing it, you will know by the way the thing is looking so artificial. Right, so imagine me sliding the clarity up to this point like this, and sliding this texture up to this point like this. It's looking so unreal and all of that. See her skin and all of that, the pores and everything is, and that's not what we want. All right, so we'll use brain to actually do that. So clarity, I want the picture to come out crisp a little bit. All right, texture, I want our body texture, all these pores and all of that. I want them out, but not as out as this. So I'll just leave it there. I'll apply the haze a little bit. So these sliders work. The haze basically to give like a darkened feel to it. So add a little bit. Then I'll compensate on the exposure. Right, that will reduce the highlight a little bit. So all these things come with what do you call it? Preference, personal preference. Right, there's no particular formula to it. So these shadows, I can drop the shadows a little bit, right, then increase the whites, then reduce the blacks, right. So this is the before, this is the after. So you see it's getting more
more solid. All right. So now the next thing I do is I move to vibrance. I desaturate the picture a little bit. Why I'm desaturating the picture a little bit is due to the fact that over the main course of the design, I love adding vibrance at the end of or at the top of my layers in design to give my design that pop. So if there's so much saturation already in the picture, the vibrance added over the picture at the later end might making the picture look too colory and all of that, and that's not what I need. Right. And secondly, I would also be adding. Secondly, the other reason I also desaturate a little bit is due to the fact that I might have other pictures that I would want to um, pair with this picture. That's when I'm having designs where I have multiple pictures. So I also desaturate other pictures so that it's easier for me to generally color grade all of them together to have a particular tone. Right? So I desaturate this a little bit, then I increase the vibrance to a little bit. Right? So to compensate for the desaturation. So the vibrance will just be making these colors pop and all of that and all of that. So um after that I move over to curves, right? Then I reduce the curves a little bit. It curves basically to give a form of brightness and all of that, so I adjust to my taste. Right, so around here is okay. All right, so that's okay there. Then I come to details. Right, so in my details I sharpen a little bit to give it some crisp. Then I I reduce the noise, all of these things you were seeing on her skin before. Now I'm trying to make sure they are smoothened out. Right, so I'm smoothing this out. Right, to just find that perfect spot. Right, just find that perfect spot for her. Right, so this is the before, this is the after. Right, so I'm noticing the darks are too much, the shadows are too much. So alright, so I think here is perfect. Right, here is perfect. So I might want to increase some key features like the browns and that color mixer and the reds. So these colors basically, or this saturation of these colors actually makes the colors itself in design. If you notice, if I take this down, you notice all the reds and all of that have actually gone out. So yeah, anything within this color range, just keep on saturating it. Anything of that color. If you notice her, the shadows on her eye too have also gone desaturated. Right? But once I bring it up, it comes back and all of that, and all of that. Right? So after, before, after. Alright, so that's basically that. I can decide to reduce the magenta a little bit. Alright, so decide to reduce the purple to a little bit. The background already has some form of magenta, so reducing it a little bit. And then I come to the color grading wheel. So the color grading basically mid-tones, shadows, and highlights. So I can decide to color grade from here. But most of the time, I don't like color grading from here because you might actually destroy the picture in the process. So what I do after doing all of that, I think I'm good to go. I don't really touch the remaining of all these things. This is basically the four things I use to actually color grade my pictures or to actually edit my pictures. So this is the before, this is the after. This is the before, this is the after. Right now it has so much depth and action to it. Right, so I okay this. Right, so this is what we have now. So that's good right here. Okay, so next thing I do, I come to filter. Right, again, then I move to natural or neutral filters. Right, so under these neutral filters, there's a feature I use to identify the face. You see, it's skin smoothing. So it will definitely identify her face. The AI will automatically identify her face. So I pick it out. Alright, so add the blur. If you notice, the texture on her face from the editing is quite much. So we want to add a form of smoothness and blur to her face and all of that. So There we have that. All right, so we have that there. So after smoothing this is what we have. Right, so if I turn this off, see the way it was, turn it back on, see the way it is. All right, so that's really so dope. Then I okay this. All right, so now we have this very perfect stuff we can use to actually now work on our project, right? As simple and as sweet as that. All right, so we'll do the same thing here. This picture is already retouched already, but I can decide to give it my own style or my own touch. This repeat the same thing, camera raw feature, right? So depending on the type of design we do, right? Most of the time these are pictures, or these pictures look so flat and smooth, and we need to get more skin back into the game. So that's basically where I get my inspiration to add these textures and all of that, to give it more solid stuff and all of that, right? So if you notice how the picture is already changing, this is what it was before, this is what we have now, right? So expose it a little bit, increase the whites on these pictures, reduce the highlights. The highlights are actually the brighter sides on this stuff, and then the shadows are the darker parts. So if I'm reducing this, you see it's taking if I'm increasing this, right? So I can reduce the shadows a little bit. So I come here, remember what we said, desaturate, alright, not to when it's getting white and black, we use your head, then increase the vibrance, right? So that's that. Come to curves. I might not necessarily do so much on the curves though. This here, right here, is okay for me, so it's not looking too dark. Take this slider up here, right? So have that. To the details, the same thing, sharpen it, right? Sharpen it, then reduce the noise. The noise are all those little pores on our faces and all of that. So before, after, right? So you see what it's giving. It's giving very nice. So increase the browns here. Right, to see how the stuff is now popping now. See the way it was before, it's the way it is now. It's now popping and has so much depth and realism into it. So I okay this. Right, so this is what we have now. Then same thing, neutral filter, run the same thing. The AI will automatically identify the face. Right, then smoothness. A little bit, and blow it out a little bit. Right, so this is what it was before. This is what it is now. Right, still processing. Right, so okay, this is what I have, right, compared to what we had initially. So you can see how it's given in every sense. Right, so that's that about that for today.